Hello friends, I'm Hannah, aka Han Embroiders, and if you want to learn how to do this to your own shoes, keep watching. This is going to be an in-depth video tutorial for my embroidery kit number 3, the third kit in a range I've been designing for beginners to learn embroidery on shoes. If you don't already have a kit, check out the links in the description of this video so you can snag one of your own. For this video, I'm going to be using a light brown pair of Converse All-Stars. Please note that this specific kit has been designed for use on high-top Converse shoes. The number 3 embroidery kit, like all of my other kits, will come with all of the tools you need to complete this specific design, including the embroidery needles, finger protectors, and the water-soluble stickers that you can see me adhering to the shoes here. The larger, longer stickers go on the outer areas of the shoes. It's totally up to you if you want to line the design up with the sole of the shoe. I personally prefer the flowers to be sitting a little above the sole line of the shoe. A quick tip I've learned after working with these stickers is to make sure of the placement before actually sticking them down, because once they've been stuck down once and you try to move them to a different spot, they become way less tacky and harder to work with. Once you've got your stickers stuck down, it's time to prep the shoe for embroidery. I'm using a pair of my own Converse for this video, so please forgive how worn they are. I just ended up really liking this design and had to embroider it on a pair of my own Chucks. Unlace the shoes and tuck the tongue underneath the toe cap at the front of the shoe. Now, you could remove the laces altogether, but I like to loosely knot them and tuck them in alongside the tongue so they're out of the way. Now it's time to choose your thread. We'll be embroidering the stems and leaves on the outside of the shoe first, so I've chosen a warm green colour. I'll be using 2 strands of thread for both the leaves and the stems, so I've sectioned 2 smaller strands away from the remaining 4 in the skein. Almost all embroidery skeins come with 6 strands of thread. Next, thread your number 10 needle. This is the largest in the pack that comes included in the embroidery kit. Remember to double knot the end of your thread so it doesn't pull through the fabric. Don't forget your finger protector. We'll be doing a simple back stitch for the straight flower stems, but a lot of the curved areas, like the off-shooting branches, will look best if you use a couch stitch, which I'll explain in just a second. Use a satin stitch, just going back and forth, to fill the leaves, making sure to fill the entire outlined area so that they look full. To make a couch stitch for the curved lines of the branches and stems, make a simple straight stitch from one end of the branch to the other. Instead of pulling it tight in a straight line, leave it a little slack and stick your needle up through the point at which you want it to curve. Loop your needle through the thread that you left slack and pull toward where you want the curve to be created. You can also add in additional couch stitches in order to perfect the curve along the line of the branch. I'll be going back in with a lighter green colour, so I'm going to be skipping the next flower stem and moving on to the next one. The key to really full looking leaves is to fill the outline completely. I found it took 5 or 6 satin stitches to get them to where I wanted them to be. There are some small sprigs that don't have any leaves on them. We'll be adding some smaller accents to them later, so don't forget to stitch them onto the stems and branches. Remember, if your thread gets a little tangled, don't yank on your needle and thread. Find the tangle and gently pull it in the opposite direction and it'll usually come free. I'm leaving one leaf bare on this stem because I wanted to use the other green to make the design a little less uniform. This is totally optional, and of course you don't have to use a different colour green at all if you don't want to. Once you're done with this colour, you should be left with something like this. We're going to go ahead and loop the needle through the closest inner stitch we can find. Do this twice and then twice more, but turn those loops into knots before cutting off the excess thread. I'm going to go back in with a much lighter green, 2 strands of it, for the remaining stems and leaves. I'll be using the number 10 needle again, and as always, don't forget to double knot the end of your thread. Just like with the first colour, we'll be using a satin stitch for the leaves, a back stitch for the straight stems, and a couch stitch for the curved stems and branches. You don't have to use a couch stitch, you can just go in with a regular back stitch and curve it along the line. I just prefer the way the curved branches look with a couch stitch. Don't forget to embroider the leaf we left out on the second to last stem. Make sure to tie off and secure your thread on the inner stitches when you're finished with your lighter green. Next, we're going to move on to the flower embroidery. I chose a warm yellow for the first of my flower colours. We'll be using the same needle and 3 strands of thread for all of the flowers. We'll be using a lazy daisy stitch for the flower petals, but if this sounds too difficult, you can always just use a satin stitch to fill the space instead. For the lazy daisy stitch, start at the center of the flower, pulling the needle up through the shoe, and stick it back through in almost exactly the same spot, but don't pull the thread taut yet. Pull the needle up through the shoe at the tip of the petal you're working on. Loop your needle through the excess of thread that you left, pulling gently to make the thread taut before sticking it back through the shoe and creating your petal. Repeat this process for the rest of the petals on this flower. We're then going to skip a couple flowers and do a couple more lazy daisy stitches on this half flower right here. Finish off your petals before securing and tying off the thread inside the shoe. Next, I'm going to go in with 3 strands of this lavender colour on this flower. This will be the only flower I use this colour on. Again, I'm using the number 10 needle and I'm double knotting the end of my thread. Secure and tie off your thread before picking your last flower colour. I'm going in with a light pink for the remaining flowers, and we're also going to be using this colour for the small accents I mentioned earlier. Remember those mini branches we made? We'll be using this colour to add accents to those. For the small accents at the ends of the branches, stick your needle up through the fabric at the end of the branch, pull the thread through and loop the thread around the needle twice before sticking the needle back through the fabric. Keep a thumb on the thread as you pull it through to keep the French knot tight and tidy. This is known as a French knot stitch. I find it easier to do the knots as I go rather than completing the pink flowers and going back for the knots. Secure and tie off the pink thread before choosing the colour for the middle of the flowers, or the pollen area. I decided to go in with a warm brown, and again we're going to be using 3 strands of the thread and the number 10 needle. We'll be doing French knots again for the pollen of the flowers. Keep your French knots tight by controlling your thread with your thumb as it travels back through the shoe. Once you're done with your French knots, you should have a final result like this. Tie off and secure your thread. Don't underestimate how important this step is. You want your embroidery to last. Now we're going to start on the inner embroidery design. I'll be going in with 2 strands of the darker green I used on the outside of the shoe. I already had 2 strands left over from the outer shoe embroidery, so I didn't have to split more thread, but remember, 2 strands. We'll be using the number 10 needle again. Use a combination of simple back stitches and couch stitches on the stem area, and a satin stitch to fill the leaves as you travel down the stem. I originally placed this sticker in the wrong spot, so I relocated it here, and as you can see, there's a little bit more lifting at the edges because it lost some of its adhesiveness. I'm leaving a few leaves bare of thread because I'll be going back in with the lighter green for those ones. Tie off and secure your thread on the nearest inner stitches. Remember to double knot. Go in with your lighter green, 2 strands of it, and fill the remaining leaves with a satin stitch. Tie off and secure your thread. Next, we'll go in with the colour we want to use for the flower between the vines. I wanted to use this yellow that I used on the outside of the shoe. Once you've finished your lazy daisy stitches, use the same colour to accent the smaller branches around the leaves. You should be left with something like this. For our last stitch, we'll go back in with 3 strands of our chosen pollen colour and create 1 French knot in the centre of the flower. Tie off and secure your thread before admiring all of your hard work. Don't spend too much time admiring though, we still have the water-soluble stickers to remove. Grab yourself a warm bowl of water. This process can also be done at a sink, but please do not submerge the whole shoe in water. I used a microfiber towel which worked really well in picking up small pieces of the disintegrating sticker. Dampen the entire embroidery area and gently move the towel over the excess sticker. Don't scrub at it, but don't be too careful because the embroidery is a lot more secure than it looks. Remember how many times we tied it off? This process took me about 15 minutes to totally remove the sticker and make it dissolve completely. I found that completely saturating the fabric and letting the water do most of the work was the best approach. I also took the towel and dampened the entire outer shoe area to avoid harsh water lines once the shoes were dry. After you've removed all traces of the soluble sticker, leave the shoes to dry in a well-ventilated space for 12 to 24 hours. If you're worried about getting your shoes dirty, you can always spray them with waterproof shoe protector. I don't ever recommend machine washing. Spot cleaning with a damp towel is the best way to go with hand embroidered shoes. And you're all done. Thank you so much for watching. If you haven't already snagged a kit, I'll have them linked in the description below. Subscribe and turn on your notifications so you don't miss any of my upcoming embroidery content. Thanks for watching.